I was developing a course on sociolinguistics in the Masters of T-Cell program, and I was redeveloping it for a mixed mode delivery. So I really wanted to create a space where the students could share their ideas and their own experiences, and then we could all learn from that and thus create a community of practice in our classroom. So I used a few different tools and strategies to develop this community of practice. So in the very first session together, we co-created some classroom guidelines for respectfully discussing the potentially sensitive topics. I also incorporated Padlet, which was used for responding to reflection questions based on the readings and the pre-session videos. Once we moved online, thanks to COVID-19, Padlet was then used a lot more for writing and sharing individual and group ideas based on the discussions during our class. We also used the discussion board tool. So this was used for reflecting on the weekly readings and discussing the related topics. So weekly contributions to the discussion board and responding to other posts was the first assessment task for this course. So I think the course was really quite successful in encouraging student engagement and creating this community of practice that I had wanted to do in the beginning. So for example, there were over 400 entries on the discussion board during that 12 weeks from 17 different students. I think this was definitely partly because of the fact that it was an assessment task, but then students actually went beyond what was required for the actual assessment. In the beginning, I spent a lot of time responding to the posts that students had written, as well as in the discussion board and the Padlet. And then I talked about these specific entries during class time and continued the conversations that had happened in the online space. So this really added some value to the tool, so students were a little bit more motivated perhaps to then contribute. But over time, I found that I needed to be present in these spaces a lot less, as the conversations between the students actually grew a lot more organically. And the conversations moved in all these different directions that I hadn't really anticipated, which was absolutely fantastic. So on the Padlet, students were really readily sharing their ideas, and they began to share other resources as well, like news stories, journal articles. There really was this community of practice happening where everyone was learning from each other through this sharing of ideas and experiences. They also shared things like community groups that they knew of. There was even a recommendation for a television show that was using a particular dialect in Vietnamese that another student was interested in learning. So the conversations online also informed the conversations that we were having during our class. So this made for a really rich and engaging classroom environment. The student feedback was also really great on this course. They commented that they enjoyed the discussions on the various platforms and really enjoyed learning from their peers. One student even said that it was the best and most interactive online class that they had ever had. So there really are so many tools that we can incorporate to engage our students in the learning and sharing in our classrooms. So it's really important to consider the purpose of the tool before you choose an appropriate tool. Providing spaces for students to share their own experiences is really enriching, and I believe it leads to more engagement in the classroom. So this practice validates students' own expertise and their experience, and then motivates them to participate in the class more. So you as the instructor also need to be an active member of these discussions. So in the beginning, students really need to sort of have that push in order to be participating and to see the value in these conversations. So what I was doing was commenting on students' posts and talking about them in the classroom, and I think that really helped to validate these tools. We also shouldn't be making sure that these tools are kept in isolation from each other. They can definitely link together and be incorporated in various aspects of the classroom. I think it's really important as well to be setting up the expectations and the guidelines for how we can be engaging in these spaces. So what is an appropriate way to engage and comment in both the online and the face-to-face interactions, particularly when you want to be having in-depth discussions on topics that may be a little bit sensitive to certain members of the class.